Millionaire woman's dog ran away, a poor teen returned. It and got more than he could imagine. The morning sun cast long shadows across Maple Street as 17-year-old Jake Morrison pedaled his worn-out bicycle toward downtown Millbrook, Connecticut. His sneakers had holes that let in the October chill, and his backpack was patched with duct tape, but Jake wore a determined smile. He had exactly 2 hours before his shift at Murphy's Corner store, and he planned to spend every minute searching for odd jobs to help his single mother pay the rent. Jake had grown up in the modest duplex on the wrong side of Millbrook's tracks, where luxury cars rarely ventured and manicured lawns were a distant dream. His mother, Sarah, worked double shifts as a waitress at the local diner, her tired eyes reflecting years of struggle to make ends meet. Despite their circumstances, she had raised Jake with unwavering values: honesty, hard work, and treating everyone with respect, regardless of their station in life. As Jake coasted down Elm Avenue, something caught his eye near the old stone bridge that crossed Millbrook Creek. A beautiful golden retriever sat alone by the water, its pristine coat gleaming in the sunlight. The dog wore an expensive-looking collar with what appeared to be real diamonds sparkling around its neck. "Hey there, boy," Jake called softly, dismounting his bike. The dog's ears perked up immediately, and its tail began wagging furiously. As Jake approached, he noticed the dog was panting heavily and seemed distressed. "You lost, buddy?" Jake knelt down, extending his hand. The golden retriever immediately bounded over, pressing its warm body against Jake's legs. The collar bore an elegant tag: "Princess, if found, please call Victoria Ashworth, $5,000 reward." Jake's eyes widened. $5,000 was more money than his family had ever seen at once. It could pay their overdue rent, fix their broken heater, and maybe even buy his mother the new work shoes she desperately needed but would never ask for. But as he looked at Princess's trusting brown eyes, Jake felt something more important than the promise of money. This dog clearly belonged to someone who loved her deeply. The diamond collar, the well-groomed coat, the obvious distress of being separated from home, it all spoke of a bond that needed to be restored. "All right, Princess," Jake said, scratching behind her ears. "Let's get you home." The address on the tag led Jake through parts of Millbrook he'd only seen from a distance. As he walked his bike with Princess trotting happily beside him, the modest homes gave way to sprawling estates hidden behind iron gates and perfectly trimmed hedges. The wealth gap became more apparent with each step, but Jake pressed on, driven by a sense of purpose he couldn't quite explain. Victoria Ashworth's mansion sat atop Hillcrest Drive like a crown jewel. The colonial-style home was imposing, yet elegant, with white columns and bay windows that seemed to watch over the entire town below. Jake had heard whispers about the reclusive widow who lived there, how she'd lost her husband in a tragic accident 5 years ago and had barely been seen in public since. Standing before the ornate front door, Jake felt suddenly self-conscious about his patched clothes and scuffed shoes. But Princess whined softly and nudged his hand, reminding him why he was there. He pressed the doorbell, its melodic chime echoing from within. Several minutes passed before the door slowly opened. Victoria Ashworth stood before him, and Jake was struck by how different she looked from the shadowy figure of local gossip. She appeared to be in her early 50s, with silver-streaked auburn hair pulled back in an elegant bun. Her blue eyes were red-rimmed with worry, and she wore a simple but expensive cashmere sweater over dark jeans. "Princess." Victoria's composure cracked as she saw her beloved dog. She dropped to her knees on the marble floor, and Princess launched herself into her arms with joyful barks and excited tail wags, through tears of relief. Victoria looked up at Jake. "How can I ever thank you? I've been searching for her all night." The gate was left open by the landscaping crew, and she just ran. Her voice broke slightly. "No thanks needed, ma'am," Jake replied, his voice steady despite his nervousness. "I could see she missed you something fierce." Victoria stood, still holding Princess close. "Please come in, I insist. You must be freezing, and I need to give you the reward money." Jake shifted uncomfortably. "That's really not necessary. I was just doing what anyone would do." "What would you do?" Victoria's eyebrows rose. "Young man, I posted that reward 3 weeks ago when Princess first went missing. You're the first person to return her without demanding payment up front or trying to negotiate for more money." As they moved into the grand foyer, Jake marveled at the opulence around him. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over marble floors, and oil paintings in gilded frames lined the walls. Yet despite the grandeur, something felt hollow about the space, too quiet, too empty. "What's your name?" Victoria asked, leading him toward what appeared to be a sitting room. "Jake Morrison, ma'am. I live over on Maple Street." Victoria paused, studying his face. "Morrison ... Sarah Morrison's son?" Jake nodded, surprised. "You know my mom? She served me coffee at the diner a few times years ago. Always with such a genuine smile, even when she looked exhausted." Victoria's expression softened. She raised a good son. In the sitting room, Victoria insisted Jake take a seat in one of the plush leather chairs while she prepared tea. As she busied herself at an antique tea service, Jake noticed family photographs scattered on side tables, Victoria with a distinguished-looking man, both of them laughing in various exotic locations. "My husband Richard," Victoria said quietly, noticing Jake's gaze. "He would have liked you. He always said you could judge a person's character by how they treat animals and those less fortunate." When Victoria returned with the tea, she also carried a checkbook. "Now, about that reward, Mrs. Ashworth," Jake interrupted gently. "I really don't need any money. Seeing Princess back where she belongs is reward enough." Victoria set down the checkbook and studied Jake intently. "You know, I've been wealthy for most of my adult life. I've met countless people who saw dollar signs when they looked at me. But you..." She shook her head in wonder. "You genuinely just wanted to help." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, Princess contentedly lying at Victoria's feet but keeping one eye on Jake, as if recognizing him as her hero. "Tell me about yourself, Jake," Victoria said finally. "What are your dreams? Your plans? For the future?" Jake found himself opening up in a way he rarely did with strangers. He talked about his mother's struggles, his own dreams of going to college someday, and his current reality of working part-time jobs to help make ends meet. He spoke of wanting to study business, maybe even start his own company to help families. Like his Victoria listened intently, asking thoughtful questions and showing genuine interest in his responses. As the afternoon wore on, Jake realized he'd been there for over 2 hours and was going to be late for work. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Ashworth, but I need to get to my job at Murphy's," he said, standing reluctantly. Of course, Victoria rose as well. "But Jake, before you go, I have a proposition for you." Jake paused, uncertain. "I've been looking for someone to help me with various tasks around the estate. Nothing too strenuous, organizing files, helping with correspondence, maybe some light maintenance work. The pay would be $15 an hour, and you could work around your school schedule." Jake's mind raced. $15 an hour was more than twice what he made at Murphy's. That's incredibly generous, ma'am, but why would you offer that to me?" Victoria smiled, the first genuine smile Jake had seen from her all day. "Because in a world where kindness seems increasingly rare, you restored my faith in human nature. And because I think you and I might be able to help each other more than you realize." As Jake prepared to leave, Victoria walked him to the door. "Think about it, Jake. No pressure. But if you're interested, come by this Saturday morning. There's something else I'd like to discuss with you." "What kind of something?" Jake asked curiously. Victoria's eyes twinkled with a hint of mischief. "Let's just say, your education doesn't have to end with high school." Jake's heart skipped a beat. But before he could ask what she meant, Victoria had gently closed the door, leaving him standing on the grand front steps with his mind spinning and Princess's grateful bark echoing from inside as he pedaled home. Through the gathering dusk, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this day had changed something fundamental in his life. He didn't know it yet, but Victoria Ashworth had already decided that the young man who had returned her beloved Princess without expecting anything in return was exactly the kind of person the world needed more of, and exactly the kind of person she wanted to help succeed. Saturday morning arrived with a crisp autumn chill that made Jake's breath visible as he approached the Ashworth estate. He'd spent the entire week thinking about Victoria's offer and her mysterious comment about his education. His mother had been cautiously optimistic when he'd told her about the job opportunity, though she'd warned him to be careful around wealthy people who might have ulterior motives. "Just remember who you are, Jake," Sarah had said that morning, straightening his collar. "Money doesn't change a person's worth, whether they have it or don't have it." Princess greeted Jake at the door with enthusiastic tail wags, as if they were old friends. Victoria appeared moments later, dressed casually in jeans and a cream-colored sweater, looking more relaxed than she had the week before. "Right on time," she said with approval. "I like that. Come, let's have breakfast first, and then I'll show you around properly." The kitchen was a masterpiece of modern design mixed with homey touches professional grade. Appliances alongside handwritten recipe cards and family photos held by magnets on the refrigerator. Victoria moved comfortably around the space, preparing. What Jake quickly realized was a feast compared to his usual breakfast of toast and instant coffee. "Mrs. Ashworth, this is too much," Jake protested as she set down plates of fresh fruit, scrambled eggs, bacon, and homemade pancakes. "Call me Victoria, please. And it's not too much, it's exactly what a growing young man needs for fuel." She sat down across from him. "Besides, I haven't cooked for anyone in years. It feels good to have a purpose for it again." Over breakfast, Victoria shared more about her life. She and Richard had built their fortune through a combination of smart investments and a tech company. They'd started in their garage 30 years earlier. After Richard's death in a car accident, Victoria had withdrawn from the business world and most social connections, finding solace only in Princess and her memories. "I realize now that I've been living in the past," she admitted, watching Princess beg shamelessly for bacon scraps. "But meeting you reminded me that there are still good people in the world worth investing in." After breakfast, Victoria led Jake on a tour of the estate. The house had 12 rooms, including a library that made Jake's jaw drop. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves held thousands of volumes on every subject imaginable: business, history, science, literature, philosophy. A computer workstation in the corner looked more sophisticated than anything Jake had ever seen. "This is where I'd like you to start working," Victoria said. "These files need organizing, and some of this correspondence needs attention. But first," she moved to an antique desk and pulled out a thick folder. "I want to discuss your future." Jake opened the folder to find college brochures: Harvard, Yale, Stanford, MIT, along with scholarship applications and financial aid information. "I don't understand," Jake said quietly. Victoria sat down beside him. "Jake, in the short time I've known you, I've seen qualities that most people twice your age don't possess. You have integrity, compassion, intelligence, and work ethic. Those are the foundations of success. But I can't afford college, especially not places like these," Jake protested, gesturing at the Ivy League brochures. "What if I told you that cost wasn't an issue?" Victoria's eyes were serious now. "What if I told you that I want to invest in your education, your future?" Jake stared at her in stunned silence. "I've been thinking about this all week," Victoria continued. "Richard and I never had children, but we always planned to use our wealth to make a difference. After he died, I lost sight of that purpose. but you've reminded me what we always believe, that investing in good people is the best investment you can make. You barely know me, Jake whispered. I know enough. I know you returned a valuable dog without expecting anything in return. I know you work multiple jobs to help your mother. I know you dream of getting an education, but are too proud to accept charity. Victoria leaned forward. This isn't charity. Jake, this is an investment. I believe you'll use your education to make the world better, and that makes this the smartest business decision I could make. Over the next several hours, Victoria outlined her proposal. She would pay for Jake's college education tuition, room, board, books, everything, in exchange for Jake working part-time at the estate during school breaks and summers. More importantly, she wanted to mentor him, sharing the business knowledge and life experience she'd gained over decades of success. There's one condition, Victoria said as they sat in the library that afternoon, Princess sleeping contentedly between them. You have to promise me that someday, when you're successful, you'll do the same thing for someone else. You'll find a young person with potential and give them the same opportunity. Jake felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of the offer. Why me? Why are you doing this? Victoria was quiet for a long moment, gazing out the library window at the perfectly manicured grounds. 5 years ago, when Richard died, I thought my life was over. I had all this money, this beautiful house, but no purpose, no one to share it with except Princess. I was drowning in loneliness and grief. She turned back to Jake. Then a 17-year-old boy appears at my door, returns my most precious companion, and asks for nothing in return. In that moment, I saw something I'd forgotten existed: pure goodness. You reminded me that there are still people in this world worth believing in. Jake thought about his mother, working double shifts and never complaining. He thought about his dreams of college, which had seemed as distant as the stars. He thought about the opportunity before him and the weight of Victoria's trust. There's something else, Victoria said, pulling out another folder. I've been doing some research on your family. Your mother's been working at that diner for 12 years, never missing a shift, never being late. Her manager told me she's the most reliable employee they've ever had. Jake nodded, pride swelling in his chest. I'd like to offer her the position of house manager here at the estate. The salary would be 3 times what she makes at the diner, with full health benefits and a small apartment above the garage, if she wants it. Jake's eyes filled with tears he was too proud to let fall. You'd do that for my mom too? Jake, when you invest in someone, you invest in their whole family. Your mother raised the kind of person who returns a lost dog without expecting a reward. That tells me everything I need to know about her character. As the afternoon sun slanted through the library windows, Jake made his decision. He would accept Victoria's offer, not just for himself, but for his mother, and for all the future young people he would someday help in return. I accept, he said simply, but I want to start earning this right away. What can I do to prove I'm worthy of your investment? Victoria smiled, a radiant expression that transformed her entire face. You already have, Jake. You already have. 6 months later, Jake Morrison received acceptance letters from 5 top universities, along with a full scholarship package that Victoria had quietly arranged through her foundation. Sarah Morrison gave her notice at the diner and moved into her new role as Victoria's house manager, bringing warmth and laughter back to the Grand Estate for the first time in years. On the day before Jake left for Harvard Business School, he sat in the library with Victoria and Princess, reviewing his course schedule. Nervous? Victoria asked. Terrified, Jake admitted with a grin. But I'm excited too. Good. A little fear keeps you humble, and humility is what will make you a great leader someday. Victoria handed him a small wrapped package. A going away gift. Inside was a leather-bound journal with his initials embossed in gold on the cover. On the first page, Victoria had written, For Jake, remember that every successful person started with a single act of kindness. Pay it forward. I will, Jake promised. I'll make you proud. You already have, Victoria replied, echoing her. Words from that first Saturday morning. As Jake headed off to college, he carried with him more than just Victoria's financial support. He carried her faith in his potential, her lessons about using success to lift others, and the knowledge that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can create the biggest changes in the world. Princess, now 8 years old and still beautifully golden, had gained a permanent friend in Jake Morrison. And Victoria Ashworth had found something she thought she'd lost forever: a family, a purpose, and proof that goodness still existed in the world. The story of a poor teenager who returned a millionaire's dog became the story of how one act of honesty changed 2 lives forever, creating a ripple effect of kindness that would continue for generations to come.
Thank you for watching this story unfold with us here on M&A The Story Unfolds. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new tale. We'd love to know where you're watching. Leave a comment below and tell us what part of the world you're joining us from. Your support means everything. See you in the next story.